Hi, this is attorney Jamie Miller of the Miller Law Chronicles podcast, a lawyer here at Miller & Miller in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And today I'm really excited. We have a really wonderful guest. Several months ago, we partnered, almost a year ago, we partnered with a company called Lexria. Lexria is the name of a software company that allows us to have our clients go into a portal to provide us with all their information. So their assets, their liabilities, their debts, their obligations, everything that we need to help our clients file bankruptcy and prepare the bankruptcy petition. It's been a challenge that we've had communicating with our clients, getting that information over the years, or at least getting that information in a way that we know is accurate and correct. So we partnered with Lexria and specifically really got to know Sally Rogers, the owner of Lexria, and she's the director of client success at Lexria in Boston. So been doing this for about a year. Sally is joining us as a guest today to kind of give us an overview of Lexria, what it does, how it's helping with that client experience and the client engagement, and how all of a sudden we've gone from a real problem getting information from clients, a real pain point for our staff, a pain point for our clients, to really using Lexria that is a TurboTax menu-driven question and answer software that helps our clients get accurate information, to get pay stubs, to get bank statements. It's really been a game changer and really has put Miller & Miller on the forefront of technology when it comes to getting information from clients. So it's somewhat of a success, been working for us for about a year. We continue to improve and get better, but just excited to have you here and listen to a conversation that I had with Sally from Lexria. I hope you enjoy it, and please remember to like us on and follow us on YouTube, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple. If you would follow us, I'd really appreciate it. It allows us to continue to bring great content such as we have today with Sally Rogers from Lexria. Hello, this is attorney Jamie Miller welcoming you to another version and another episode of the Miller Law Chronicles. The Miller Law Chronicles is a podcast where we try to help our clients simplify the legal maze by giving them clarity and confidence. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Sally Rogers to the podcast. Sally is a partner of Miller & Miller and is the director of client success and the partial owner of a company called Lexria. Interesting name. We'll talk about Lexria and where that name came from. But Sally, welcome to the podcast and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me. And I love the idea of diving into that name. To get started, I live in Boston, Massachusetts with my husband, who's also part owner of Lexria and my business partner in this venture. I actually went to UNC Chapel Hill for undergrad and then Boston University for grad school, which is how I ended up in Boston, loving New England. I'm one of those funny people that loves the seasons. And in talking to Jamie and members of his team in the Midwest, we are kindred spirits in that regard. After grad school, I spent some time in financing and consulting, and then a move to San Francisco really enabled me to explore the entrepreneurship side of me. And that's where I got bit by the startup bug, started a snack company and then a brand partnerships platform, a tech company. And it was in that latter experience that my husband, who's an engineer, he kind of got involved on the side as just like a tech support for the business. And then over a matter of months, we realized that we actually worked really well together on the business side, and we started exploring other business ideas. So we are partners both in work and in life. And we have expanded our partnership to include now an 18-month-old crazy Springer Spaniel that we laugh about a lot. It gets us spending a lot of time outside. She's really sweet, but she's also crazy, as anybody that has taken on the puppy life knows.
Excellent. And I want to talk to you about Lexria, and I think it's important for me to give a little bit of context how we met and what my interest in Lexria is. And I've been operating a bankruptcy law firm since 1993, and helping consumers file bankruptcy for all these years has many challenges, but the biggest challenge that we have is getting information from clients. It's always been one of the more frustrating elements of our practice from our standpoint as lawyers, but also from the client standpoint, because essentially what we need to do when we prepare a bankruptcy petition is to tell a story and to tell the client story. We need to know all kinds of information about them. Their starts with their name and address, but it really gets into their assets, their liabilities, their debts, their income and expenses. And the bankruptcy laws changed in 2005, and it's a long time ago already. But it made the bankruptcy filing process much more complicated. And Sally, I remember 2004, 2003, we would file a bankruptcy and we really didn't have to provide anything to the trustee. We didn't have to provide bank statements, and we didn't have to provide pay stubs, and we didn't have to provide tax returns or car titles or deeds. And with the changing and increasing complexity in the bank with the bankruptcy filings, so has come the increasing complexity with getting documents from clients in a way that makes sense. And so we have been really struggling from, using a workbook, using a paper that we would mail to the clients, they would fill it out, and then they would get it back to us. And then over time, we used a PDF fillable form, which was okay. And then we tried to even develop our own technology that would electronically, either via email or through a portal, would allow us to create some sort of document that it made it easy or easier for the client to transmit information to us. So, long story short, we tried to develop our own software. I'm a lawyer. I'm not great at that. It just didn't work. It wasn't consumer friendly. And I'm involved in other lawyer groups. And I started hearing about Lexria and you and your husband, Sally. And so I reached out, and I had learned from you and from others in our bankruptcy world that you had a product that was more consumer friendly than what we were doing. And I guess that's, long story short, that's how I came to you. But tell me a little bit about Lexria, why you formed it, what it means, and that type of thing.
Sure. So, very simply, Lexria is bankruptcy intake software. So, for anyone listening right now, you just heard the problem Jamie mentioned, and our solution, Lexria, makes it very easy for any attorney that seeks to bring technology, efficiency, and a more streamlined approach to their intake workflow. We meet that need. So my partner and I actually took over this business. So as I mentioned, when my husband and I started working together, we were trying to find that overlap of in what makes great founders work really well together. Not only the alchemy of two people coming together with potentially very different skills, but an overlap in terms of strategy and goals and vision, but it's also the spaces that they've worked in before. And my husband and partner had actually grown a software business from being a founder and ended up selling it in the document space. So it was very, very focused on documents. And I had spent some time, as I mentioned in my intro, doing a lot of different things, but that movement to entrepreneurship to me was really about fully understanding a customer and how important knowing who your customer is and building product for them and kind of relating to the client and the client's need. And in our case, our customers are our attorneys, but more importantly, it's also the attorney world, which is your clients, Jamie. So we have to take this holistic view. And that's something that I had brought from my work in consulting was I was bringing that to the projects that I was working on. So we actually found out about Lexria from some folks in our startup ecosystem, and they were ready to move on, and we ended up taking over the business. So they had sort of gotten it started. There were some folks already using Lexria, and we found such an impressive, not only beginning of product, but also the opportunity to meet client demand and client need and to take it forward. And again, our overlapping skills and expertise really enabled us to feel really good about this. So yeah, I think that kind of sums up why we're here and why we're talking about Lexria.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I can tell you that working with you, and we've been doing it for the last several months, has really been great. I mean, you're just really easy to work with, and I view Lexria as a partner and almost as a remote paralegal. It's wonderful to have you on our team, and it's definitely resolved many issues that we've had. It's not 100% perfect, but I can tell you that our clients now, since we've been using Lexria and since we've changed some things operationally here at the firm, have really bought into it. They understand it, and they're doing a better job of getting us the documentation that we need versus how they were doing things before we had an opportunity to work with Lexria. But if you could spend a few minutes and explain, kind of some of the elements of Lexria from the client perspective, what it does, why it's easier for them to use, and that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and I really appreciate that vote of confidence around being partners. We obviously feel similarly. So from the client perspective, we tend to summarize this really simply as we're like the TurboTax of bankruptcy intake software. So what that means, and usually there's a visual immediately that comes to mind for a client, which is, really, really simple interface. I can access it on any device. It keeps track of my progress. It knows where I was last year and it knows how I'm doing right now in the sense of anything that I entered can be tracked through the application. There's usually larger buttons, bigger iconography, strong colors. Like it's very consumer focused. It's not the software that is built, for kind of nuance and artistic quality and design. It is built for a customer to go in there and really just simply enter information and upload documents. And more importantly than all of that, sitting on top of all of that is this sense of progress. And I remember a conversation that I had with your COO, Christina, and she really voiced this sense that like Lexria gives your clients control of their situation. They know how far along they are. They know what questions are left to answer. They know the big ticket items that are in the software. They know where they need to upload documents. There aren't these extra, well, you did this, but also there's this thing over here. Or, oh, we forgot to ask you this. Or did you see the PS in my email where I also asked for this? It's really simple. It's clean. So that's sort of like the design and that TurboTax feeling for your clients. And digging in a little deeper underneath there and like what does Lexria actually do? So in a couple key areas, we automate the gathering of data, client data that's already accessible on the internet. So we partner with best-in-class third parties that allow the client to securely and safely enter their login credentials to any financial account, and for us to pull bank statements directly through that secure portal. So there isn't this extra, I need to go to my bank, download statements only to re-upload them to Lexria or send them in an email and oh my goodness, they're too big. No, we can just automatically pull them. Similarly, we can automatically pull digital pay stubs that are again already sitting out there on the internet behind a login or credential on the part of your client. We just ask for that and securely connect and pull them in. So those are two examples of this automation, this simplicity for the client. And look, we're in 2023 right now. Your clients are in a lot of cases like very digitally savvy. They know their information is already sitting there. So This leads to my second point around what Lexria does, and it's more around like behavioral and client-centric design, which is we help you build trust with your clients. So because you are leading with great technology, A, they can move through the process a lot quicker, and B, they see you as an attorney and a law firm that gets it. And that means they're more invested in the process. They're thinking about, wow, my attorney is like right there where I am as a consumer, and they're not asking me to do some sort of like antiquated process. And that trust building comes through. It means that the client is invested in the process. They see the simplicity. They know they can access it on their mobile device. And ultimately, that leads them to financial freedom in a more efficient, quicker fashion.
Right. And one of the issues that we have with our clients is they're retaining us to file a bankruptcy for them. And some of our clients feel that, once they retain us and that they're compensating us, that it's our role and responsibility to get all the information from them. But there's no magical way for us to get that information. Like I can't press a button on Google and say, give me all the information for Joe Smith. And so I get those objections sometimes that clients say, well, you have to do it for me. And what's been nice about Lexria is that it really is. And when you say kind of like TurboTax, because TurboTax is really the leader in simplifying people filing their tax returns. And what Lexria has done, it's created this kind of friendly, menu-driven method of people entering their information. And I notice that I'm getting less objections on that from the client. And there's a certain level of enjoyment that they have in organizing their lives in a way and going through Lexria. It allows them to, kind of think about their budget and think about their debts and think about their assets. And so when you have a platform like it's making it easier for them, because it's different than submitting to them, a 50-page packet of paperwork and ask them to write everything in, which is really hard. But I guess what I'm getting at is the objection that I've had from clients over the years has been, if I'm paying you to do this, why don't you get the information? But what objections and what concerns do clients have that you're hearing on your end when it comes to getting information into the Lexria portal?
Yeah, certainly we've heard that one objection that you mentioned, which is around, hey, I'm paying you, like shouldn't you go get this information? We do actually have some attorneys that say like, no, Lexria is kind of too putting too much in the hands of the client. I actually think it's more my duty as the attorney to go gather or to sit with them and walk them through the intake process and fill it out for them. So we hear that objection. There's a little bit of that, I want to be the one asking the questions and inputting information as their attorney. So we've heard that objection. And what we might say to that attorney, if you're listening today, might just be like, we might not be the best fit for you. However, you could also use our software to guide yourself through that process, or a team member to sit with your client, or to bring them in the office and sit with them and go through the software. Because again, it's all in one place, it stores everything. We haven't even talked about the fact that there's a beautiful attorney portal or dashboard where your team can access information. So that who inputs it, obviously thinking about the client, we have built it with the client in mind, but we could also say that the attorney or a team member could also be inputting that information on behalf of the client or in partnership with the client. We've also heard that the clients, sometimes they're a little bit nervous or scared about entering a bank credential or an employer login. via a third party in our tool. And, to that, I'd say, we continue to have best in class security protocols, and we're using like the third parties that American Express uses, for example. So we're definitely not skimping on the security side of things. We take data privacy very seriously. We actually like that the client is the one in control of their login and credentials and connections. And frankly, more and more people are getting comfortable with that. We know that that's sort of the way of the future. We all have a bank account app on our phones now, right? So we know that that's like a small percentage of the population, but we also want to, assure them that we are doing our part to be great stewards of their data, and that data privacy piece is taken care of. And some attorneys are just really scared of change. I think that's the last piece I might mention, in terms of the challenge that we might get with some law firms. Like, technology and movement towards a more efficient workflow seems great and aspirational and such. It's like I can put my head in that wonder space, but at the end of the day, some attorneys just say like, this is just really hard. And I think one of the great kind of disputes to that is that we're actually now starting to see law firms like yourself, Jamie, you're actually saving costs in terms of not having to hire additional people or not having to spend more paralegal time because of the quality of the information that's being entered into Lexria. So this is like such an amazing case where technology is actually automating human labor processes in a small business, in a law firm, and I think there's nothing to be afraid of there. I think there's nothing but upside. It helps you as an attorney have better, higher quality conversations with your clients and with your team, and start to chip away at some of that other team stuff or business building stuff that you just haven't gotten to in your years in practice. And this is a great place where technology is enabling that.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the the lawyer's responsibility. And I do have a lot of colleagues that'll say, I want to get the information directly from the client, which is great, and I get that. But we have to keep in mind that when we prepare bankruptcy petitions, we're preparing that bankruptcy petition under penalties of perjury. And not only is the client signing the document that everything is accurate and correct, but it's also the lawyer that's signing it that all the information is accurate and correct also. And so the sitting with the client, filling out the paperwork, it leaves open the door for incorrect information. Whereas the starting point where we use Lexria, where the client fills out the paperwork and fills out in the portal and gets us the information, it gives us a great starting point for a continued conversation. And I would argue that the chances of having a petition that is closer to 100% accurate and correct, it starts with the client getting you that information first, and then the lawyer, me and my staff, partnering with the client to make sure that the information provided to us in Lexria was accurate. And I'm a big proponent, whether it was the old fashioned workbook or with Lexria, to have the gathering of information start from the client, because I can't tell their story accurately unless I get it from them. And it saves so much time working with them to get that information through the Lexria portal. So I think that's an important point if other lawyers are listening in. But the
And
other
if I
important
if Yeah,
go
if I
ahead.
might just add to that also, both your process as well as our Lexria process does not leave the human out, right? We provide great software as like the basis for gathering that information, for getting that story straight. But there is always a human, a second set of eyes, a third set of eyes, not only in your team, but in our team. We are constantly tweaking language and help text and giving your clients short video tutorials on how best to enter information or what certain terminology means, and always deferring back to be sure you talk to your attorney about this. So just because you're using Lexria doesn't mean that it is a hands-free or hands-off humanless approach. It's merely getting the quality of information sooner into the right person's hands.
Yeah, and we are, committed to getting the right information. And to be honest, there is a cost to Lexria that our firm takes on for the benefit of the client. We feel that the investment in the technology that we are investing in is benefiting the client, it's benefiting the courts, it's benefiting the firm when it comes to process improvement. But the technology alone doesn't do it. We have hired people since we started working with Lexria. We call them onboarding coordinators. We've really found that if we have the Lexria technology and we have the human element of the onboarding coordinators that work in tandem with the client to make sure all the information in Lexria is correct. Because we are far from saying, hey, client, here's your Lexria portal, here's your login and password, good luck. Not even close to what we're doing. We've put in the human element in with our onboarding coordinators to make sure when a client retains us and whatever that is, that within 24 hours, we are having our team reach out to the client and we are sitting down with them looking at Lexria, because it's just like it's with TurboTax or any other technology. The first time a client, and people don't file bankruptcy every week and file multiple bankruptcies, so they're seeing Lexria for the first time. And so what our onboarding coordinators are trained to do is to make sure they sit down with the client early on in the process. We log into Lexria with them and we give them a head start to filling out the Lexria portal and trying to make it as easy for them as possible. We even go as far as sitting with them and sharing the screen so they're in Lexria and helping them enter their credentials for their pay stubs and for their bank statements. And I cannot tell you, I bet you any lawyer that's listening or any client, one of the biggest challenges that we have is getting bank statements and pay stubs, getting them all and getting them month to month. As if we file a bankruptcy, we're planning on September, and all of a sudden the month turns over to October. All of a sudden we need September's pay stubs. If everything is already preloaded into the Lexria portal, I don't need to go back to the client and ask them for their September pay stubs. It's going to be there. I don't have to ask them for their September bank statements. It's already there. And that's why we've invested so much time in our people on the front end of the process, because if our clients are filling out Lexria from the beginning accurately and correctly and with as much knowledge and understanding early on in the process, the end product is going to be much better. And our clients really appreciate us spending the time so they don't have to kind of blindly start using a software they're not really familiar with. And the other, wonderful thing about Lexria is because our onboarding coordinators will then, have that meeting within 24 hours of the client hiring us. We'll show them how to use Lexria, how to get their credentials in. But more importantly, on the attorney side of the portal, we're able to see the client's progress. So on day one, we're showing them how to use it. But in the past, when we've given the client a PDF fillable form, or when we've given the client a workbook, we have no idea how they're progressing with the work in the workbook. But the secret sauce with Lexria is when I sign on to the portal and I had that initial conversation, and I want to check in a week later and see how Mr. Smith is doing, I can see that they're 20% complete, or they're 50% complete, or they're 10% complete. And being armed, and my staff being armed with that information allows them to have much more higher level quality conversation. So instead of, hey, Mr. Smith, how's it coming? Well, I haven't picked it up, or, it's almost done. You know, clients aren't always 100% honest with us when it comes to where they're at in the workbook, because it's not something that they want to do and they want to procrastinate. but we're able to be the cheerleader and say, and the conversation says, hey, I looking at your Lexria, I see you've only done 10%. What's the problem you're having? How can we help you? And so all of a sudden we say, well, we need you to get to 70% by next week. And we can monitor that progress and partner with our clients and shepherd them to get from 0% completion in Lexria to 100% completion in Lexria in less contacts that we would have had we been using the old, PDF fillable form or a paper form where we have no way of knowing where they're at in the process. So it's just a very valuable tool for the client and also for the staff. And are you seeing other lawyers using it in the same way?
Definitely. And to take it just one step further, it's like that knowledge of progress. It's also, we give you the two additional tools in your attorney dashboard, which are one, to see when they last logged in. So if you see that last login was when you first had a call with them, okay, well, you haven't logged in a week since we last spoke. Like, what's going on in your life, right? Like, help me understand, we're invested in this process with you. So it's that last login, and it's also the ability to view exactly what they've entered. So it's great to know that they're 20% done, but to see that they haven't even touched the residential history section, or they've only done the two things that they did last week plus one other section, or that they're struggling maybe to find all their tax returns. Like, this level of quality conversation just expedites the whole process. And it's absolutely what other attorneys that we work with, that's how they use it as well. In fact, the ability to have those quality conversations with us to say, like, hey, it seems like my clients always get stuck here. Can we add some additional help text, or could you rearrange this section? And just a note about that kind of client centric, and in this case, from a product development standpoint, it's not only knowing your client, but also the conversations with attorneys. We knew from the beginning we had to stay in lockstep with the attorney, with your workflow needs, and ultimately changes to the industry. So what that actually means is we think of our attorney customers as this real partnership, and we take this customer-led, partner-led product development strategy in everything we do. We want to make sure our tool can meet your workflow demands, at the same time continuing to be a trustworthy place for the client. So that is just how we think about not only our business, but the product. And we can't do that unless we continue to learn, to iterate, and to build with you guys in mind.
And what do you see on the horizon for Lexria? Any technology changes that you're looking at that will either be there to help the clients a little bit more, or help the lawyers?
Yeah, so the biggest piece of feedback that we get on the lawyer side is that Jamie, would like more hands-on ability to tweak language, to take off sections, to say, I don't really need this section first, I need it second, or I really want this document section to be added. So we are actively working on a more flexible version of Lexria to enable the attorney to have a bit more of a nuance in their client intake, their individual law firm's client intake, specific to the practice or the client's filing.
And that's, I can tell you when I first met you several months ago and looked at Lexria, and when we first started using it, the Lexria forms and the platform has changed dramatically, and I'm very appreciative because you know things are different in Wisconsin as opposed to where they are in Arizona or North Dakota, and we've been able to create a Lexria platform that works for us here in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin, and the less information we have to ask our clients for, the better. And it really is now geared towards Wisconsin and a Miller client. And I appreciate you doing that, because just trying to take as much fluff out of it as possible and making the processes easier for our client and for my staff. And you've really been able to do that for us, and I'm grateful for that. I really don't have any other questions. This has just been wonderful. And I am grateful for the opportunity to work with you. You've been a great partner, and we look forward to continuing our relationship and growing our relationship, all with an eye towards making just this most challenging process that every lawyer deals with, that every client deals with, of communicating, a client's financial situation with us so that we can get a great bankruptcy petition filed. And I just want to thank you for your time and investment you've made in us.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I really appreciate the opportunity to share more about Lexria today and again, to maybe even show some of the human side behind Lexria. We know that your team's empathetic, client-driven approach is really mimicked in what we do here at Lexria, and in addition to a lot of attorneys nationwide. And we love working with attorneys that, want to make their workflow as efficient as possible and to bring some great technology to their law firm, but that also know that they can't sacrifice the human side and the kind of compassionate side of this process for their clients. And that's what we're here for.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time, and enjoy the beautiful fall of Boston.
Thank you. You as well.